Hello, Midland, Texas. Buddy Webb here. Got a super interesting story today. I'm going to try to keep it quick. What you're looking at here is the webpage for Three Kings Roofing. They did my roof last spring, summer due to a hailstorm. And so I'm going to tell you a story about that because they had a connection to that. And Chris, the sales guy, come over, and of course I tell everybody my story, and which is incredible and true, in fact, based all that. And Chris tells me that they just finished a home on Dartmouth where the homeowners had asked them to go up in their attic because they believed somebody was getting up in their attic, And so I asked Chris if I could get the name of the homeowners over there and the address, and then I went and talked to him. And I'm going to read this to you. It's a real short read right here. And attic investigation 2505 Dartmouth. Okay, Three Kings Roofing replaced my roof last year due to a hailstorm, and their sales rep, Chris Eussee, told me that they had just done a home where the homeowners told them somebody was getting in their attic and asked them to go up and look. Chris told me this was at 2505 Dartmouth, and that home was owned by Monty and Shirley Gist. On July 15, 2019, I drove over and I spoke with Shirley. She was a very nice older woman and a Christian who was tickled to find out that she wasn't the only person saying that people were getting into the attic. People have been calling her crazy, which are the same life-destroying lies that were told about me and others reporting these felonies. I told her that I was shot with burglar alarms going off in my attic, which shows how dangerous these criminals are. Okay. She said they put cameras up there but couldn't catch anybody, and I told her that I had done the same thing, and I finally figured out they were hacking my cameras. I gave proof of this to Homeland Security and the FBI last year, as that was used to help cover up the premeditated capital murder attempt on my life, which left me crippled. This is just one of many homes that I've documented where homeowners have reported somebody in the attic, and I believe they're all connected to the same crime ring and done in a similar manner, where somebody has tunneled under the home and then rigged the home with a hidden pathway up a wall where they can't be seen entering or leaving. They then steal heating, cooling, shelter, electricity, and anything else they want from the homeowner. If you try to stop them, they murder the homeowner and get the secret police to cover it up, or at least that is my experience. It makes sense the criminals who are getting into the attics are coming from a nearby home, so I did some research on the two next door neighbors of this home, and I found that Terry Lloyd lived at 2503 Dartmouth. Okay. While doing research on who this neighbor might be, I ran across an obituary for Marty Lloyd, which showed that Marty Lloyd was married to Terry, and they had a son in Big Springs named Curtis Lloyd. And Curtis Lloyd in Big Springs is who found the remains of Haley Dunn 2 days after I wrote the Department of Justice and suggested somebody look in the underground facility near my home, said by many people to be near my home. I've long suspected that somehow Curtis was chosen to find Haley, and my research on him showed that we had 145 mutual Facebook friends. Many of these were people that I suspected had a connection to the underground facilities and parties that were going on there. So I wondered if Curtis grew up in that house there at 2503 Dartmouth. And that house was rigged where people could break into the house next door. Now, that's all what ifs, but I'm going to show you just some of the different pieces of evidence here. Okay, I send an email to myself, usually name them crime log and the date. And on this one, I said I spoke with Chris with Three Kings Roofing, asked him if it's okay if I spoke with Monty and Shirley Gist about people getting up in the attic. And that was it gives me a timestamp, a record, journal, whatever. So July 9th, 2019, I spoke with Chris, and I wrote myself a note there. Okay. And then I sent myself another email on July 15, 2019, and I said I went by the home of Monty and Shirley Gist at 2505 Dartmouth, and I spoke with Shirley. She was an older woman and very nice. She told me that people would get into her attic for over a year, and her husband didn't believe her. He is a geologist, so I wondered if he really knew what was going on. She was so excited when I told her that that it was going on at many other homes. She said it took 20 years off her life just knowing that she wasn't going crazy. I felt sorry for her. she she is supposed to call me later when her husband gets back home. I told her that God saved my life, and she told me that she had a strong relationship with him. Praise God. Okay, and then of course I'm making notes here, and just interestingly, on that same day, I just got back home. There's a huge banging noise going on behind the Home Depot, which is shaking the pictures on my walls. You know, I don't know what's going on over there, and that's another story. But basically, on that day, on July 15th, the same day I talked to Shirley and Monty, when I come home, that they were digging up the ground behind Home Depot, and they were pouring concrete. And about 2 weeks before that, I had showed Homeland Security where I believe the human traffic and murder tunnels were at, that were for the oil show parties and the pedophile parties and all that. And then I feel like it was a result of me showing, hey, here's where I believe that these tunnels they're used at for multiple murders. And then 2 weeks later, they're digging up the ground, pouring concrete. And so, just interestingly, that happened on the same day. I have videos on that. Okay, and so here, the other thing I want to show you here: homeowners all over Midland, Odessa, Texas, multiple other states have documented and reported people in the attic. These are addresses of here in the Midland, Odessa area, and many of these, I have a recording right off the police scanner, you know, where the police dispatcher dispatches a police officer to a home because a homeowner called and said somebody's in my attic smoking whatever, you know, and so I mean you could see how many, and I lived here 2 years before I figured it out. Obviously, there's a whole bunch more homes that the homeowners don't even know. We don't even know how many people have been murdered, like they tried to kill me. You know, this is just all over the place. It truly is. And so, but the one we're going to investigate is the one at 2505 Dartmouth. Okay. And so what I did, if you go to the MidCAD, Midland County Appraisal District, you can look up the deed history for any home, okay? And then I did that, 2505 Monty Gist, okay? There's the address. And you know, here I can look at the deed history at the bottom, 2005. Stephen Gist was owner, and he's the principal there of Montego Minerals, and I think that's a family business that they own there. They're in the oil field business, the Gist are, okay? And so I looked at this neighbor here. This guy works for an oil company, Landon Graham. I Googled him, you know, and he lives at 2507. And then I looked at this one. Terry Lloyd lived at 2503. And that's where it got interesting right there, is because when I found that obituary, and I'm going to show you here in a minute, for Marty Lloyd, okay, and obituaries are a great place to find information. You know, she died in 2010. Rest in peace. You know, Marty Lloyd. And I find out she was married to Terry Lloyd in Midland. Well, Terry Lloyd lives at 2503 Dartmouth. You know, right? You know, I'd already found that. And then her son was Curtis Lloyd, and they lived in Big Springs. And it was a Curtis Lloyd in Big Springs that found Haley Dunn. Okay, so you can see that's why I asked the question: did Curtis Lloyd grow up in that house next door to where people were reporting someone in the attic? You know. And then he's the one that finds Haley Dunn remains 2 days after I suggest law enforcement come over here and look in the underground facility here. And I've been reporting people in my attic, you know. And then, of course, I did you know, you go to Facebook, look him up, 145 mutual friends, you know. These are the ones, too, that never share my story. This guy, Max Sanford, he was a private investigator on the Haley Dunn case back in 2012. And, he's a friend there of, I'm going to look here, see if I can find it real quick. Oh, Curtis Lloyd, okay. And so I can just do a search on Facebook, and I found him. Curtis Lloyd lives in Big Springs. You know, I mean, that's how I'm putting it all together, okay? And then I click on it and drill down into his Facebook. You know, here's Curtis Lloyd, you know. Works at disc golf, you know, retired correctional counselor at Federal Bureau of Prisons, you know, lives in Big Spring, from Seminole, and I think he also went to school here in Midland, and that's why you got all these mutual friends, you know, and you can see them all. I won't be surprised that there's a large group of these that know something about the underground facility here. And if they do that, they know about multiple murders. The little girl was murdered, 2010 Oldsmobile party, and maybe even the pedophile parties. That was, the woman was recorded saying it was going on here, etc. And so just very, very interesting that connection there with Curtis Lloyd. Okay, now let's look at the facts. The fact is that on March 14, 2013, I sent an email titled Project Safe Child Problem in Midland, Texas to the Department of Justice for the government. Okay, and I suggested that you come to my house and you look for the underground facility. I have overwhelming evidence to support the allegations of the underground facility. I mentioned Haley Dunn. I said maybe she is being held by these slavers behind my home right now, and 2 days later, her remains are found by Curtis Lloyd, no less, right? Outside of Scurry County. And what's interesting is more than a half dozen people are documented as saying Haley was killed and buried near Odessa, which is Ector County. So many people believe she was dug up and moved, and somehow Curtis was chosen to find her, okay? And that was to cover up the underground facilities here and its connection to people in the attic. And once again, it's real interesting there, okay? I'm going to show you an old video here. News West 9 story.
HD from the station that brings you more West Texas news. News West 9 weekend starts now.
I hope that there is justice for her. I hope they find whoever did it and put them behind bars for a very long time.
It's something he'll never forget. Curtis Lloyd found the remains that would ultimately be identified as Haley Dunn. Tonight, he's speaking to News West 9. A major break in the Haley Dunn case came in late March. That's when Curtis Lloyd stumbled upon the missing girl's remains near Lake J.B. Thomas. He spoke with Devin Sanchez about how this experience has changed his life.
March 16th is a day Curtis Lloyd will never forget. He was at Lake J.B. Thomas in Scurry County searching for fossils when he stumbled upon what we now know were the remains of Haley Dunn.
To think that someone could do that to a beautiful child like that, it just breaks my heart.
Lloyd says he is still trying to process that the remains he found belonged to Haley Dunn in a missing child's case that swept the nation.
It was quite a shock. I really was. When you first find it, your personal feelings get involved.
He says he wasn't notified by law enforcement, but instead by a coworker.
A friend of mine saw it on the news. He told me, he said, hey, the remains were identified. It is Haley. And so I rushed home to watch the news.
Lloyd also tells us he had a hunch that it was Haley when he found the remains.
We found the clothing item, the article of clothing. That's really what pretty well for me, hit home. I thought this probably was the missing teen from Colorado City, Haley.
But he says at the time when all this was happening, he was reluctant to say anything.
But, I couldn't go on TV last time and say that and take a chance that, I might, hurt a family's feelings and be wrong.
We asked how it felt to be the one who essentially put an end to a search that lasted more than 2 years.
It's a bittersweet thing, it's terrible that it's her, and I feel very sorry for the friends and family and all the searchers. But on the other end, I'm glad we found the remains where we can finally put her to rest and hopefully, like I said, catch the people who did it.
Now, Lloyd also tells us many of the people who spent their time searching for Haley have reached out to him to tell him thanks. But he says this isn't about him. This is about Haley and getting her justice. Devin Sanchez, News West 9.
Interestingly, Devin Sanchez there that we've just seen, she was married to former Martin County Sheriff John Woodward, the very first person that was seen on camera arriving at my house minutes after I crawled out. It's never been explained why a sheriff from a whole different county was at my house after a premeditated murder attempt. And he was followed by the late sheriff deputy Mike Naylor, who died in the line of duty 2014. Neither one of their names is on the police report, and so you can see all the connection here. You got a reporter married to the sheriff. They've been covering up the crimes against me, and here she is reporting on this Haley Dunn. You can see how it's all connected together. Okay. And one other last thing here I'm just going to show here is if you go to Google Maps, maps.google.com, put in my address, 3802 Fair Circle, and then what you're going to see, this is the block map from there. And you see a large facility in my backyard. Okay, there's the Home Depot up there, and a large facility in my backyard. When you click over to the satellite view, that facility's not there. I recorded a woman telling me there were 4 3-bedroom underground homes here. That's where it's believed the underground facilities are, and where the oil show parties and the pedophile parties and all that was going on. And here, Ricky Ronaldo said, when I was a kid, there were tunnels in the house, and me and my brother would always go down there. I used to live in that house. Multiple people are documented saying tunnels, underground facility here at my house. And once again, you got all these other homes that people are reporting people in the attic. I suspect they're rigged in a like manner, and it's probably coming from a next door neighbor. And I just find it interesting that it's real possible that the person found Haley Dunn's remains in Scurry County was Curtis Lloyd, and I wondered if he grew up in that house next door to where people were reporting people in the attic. And once again, multiple people are documented as saying Haley was killed and or buried in Odessa. So it's many people believe that she was dug up, moved, and somehow Curtis was chosen to go find her. Buddy Webb, Midland, Texas.